Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. I'm TCaptainX. If you don't know who I am a 4+ KD player, a iridescent ranked player, PR of 50 kills on Rebirth Island. Today's video, I'm going to teach you a few things about movement to help you win more gunfights, raise your KD, and just overall get better at Warzone. This video is going to be broken down into 3 main sections. First, our settings to ensure you've got the right foundation. 2, a quick overview of how to perform each of these movement techniques. And lastly, how to actually apply these movement techniques in real game situations. You're welcome to skip ahead if you want, but do so at your own risk because you might miss something important if you do. So starting out with our settings. Now, I pretty recently posted a full settings video. So if you want to see that where I go in depth on every single one of my controller settings, I will link that below in the description. But we're going to focus on the stuff that pertains mostly to movement for this video. So number 1, our probably most important one when it comes to movement is our button layout. And this depends completely on what type of controller you're on. If you're on a normal controller that does not have any extra buttons on the back or anything, you're probably best to just play on the default button layout and play with something called claw, which is the technique of how to hold your controller. So if you look at my hand cam here, you're gonna see I've got my right index finger, and I've got it curled down where I can hit the action button. So circle, X, square, all that. For me, this is a bit awkward, and this can definitely be awkward for someone if you're just teaching yourself, but there are a ton of top players out there, top Warzone ranked players, some of the biggest streamers you might know, that play like this, that have a pretty much normal controller. Now, if that's too awkward for you, you could also switch to what's called bumper jumper tactical. This is important because the tactical part is gonna make it so pressing R3, pressing our right analog stick, will create that slide or our crouch. And then we can very easily do our slide cancels by just R3, L3, R3, L3. It then makes our jump L1 or LB if you're an Xbox controller. This is very different, very awkward for a lot of people, but the reason this is so important is that it allows us to never take our right thumb off of the analog stick so that we can move and aim all at the same time. Now, I do none of these. I actually have a custom controller that has 4 paddles on the back here, and let me show you. So there's 4 buttons that I can bind to anything I want. So in my case, my bottom 2 paddles, so my bottom right is my slide or crouch, bottom left is jump, top right is gonna be triangle or to plate, switch weapons, and then top left is gonna be square to reload. Now, if you have a controller that only has 2 paddles, that is totally fine. 2, I really think is all you need, but 4 is nice. The ones you're gonna wanna make sure you have are your slide and jump on your paddles. If you're wondering about what controller I use an aim controller from aimcontrollers.com. I've been using these for about 2 years now, and of the many different custom brands that I've tried, they are by far my favorite for 2 main reasons. First, the paddle configuration is just the most comfortable and responsive to any controller I've used. They also come with a lifetime warranty on any of the modded parts. So I think in my 2 years of using aim controllers as a full-time gamer, basically, I think I've broke 1 paddle and I've broke 1 trigger, which both times I sent them in, they fixed it. I got the controller back in maybe a little bit over a week. And I just had to pay shipping, which was like 10 or 15 bucks versus having to get a totally new controller. So if you are interested, I'm gonna really quickly show you what is on my controller. Now, FYI, they have PS5, PS4, and Xbox controllers. PS5, they have the most options, but on all of these, you can get the reprogrammable paddles, the digital tap trigger. You can get all the basics on any of these. So any PS5 controller is gonna come with the paddles, the triggers, and then also snap panels, which is a cool feature where you can pop the front design off and change to any of these other designs here. I'm gonna switch my webcam over here. So tons of different designs. I do have a custom design here, and we also have a limited edition one that is available in the snap panels only, which are over here. So when it comes to the important stuff, first, they do offer something called Hall effects. Hall effect analog sticks are basically, they use a magnet instead of a just normal physical contact. Theoretically, these should never get stick drift, and they should last basically forever because you can always just recalibrate them if needed. It is an extra 50 bucks to get Hall effects, but I would say if you're someone that you don't want to ever have to worry about getting another controller again, you want it to last forever and never get stick drift, Hall effects, probably a great idea. I personally do not use Hall effects. The only reason for that is some people say, and I would agree with this after I tested them, the Hall effects have a little bit more sensitive of an aim curve. So you might want to turn your sense down by like 1 or 2 at most. And for me, for someone that plays this game a lot, basically for a living, I don't want to adjust my sensitivity again. I want to kind of stick to what I have. And I also personally have never really had stick drift issues with the normal one, so I've stuck with the normal ones personally. Now, after that, I would definitely recommend you pick whatever base color you want. Once you change the color, you can now change the height of the different sticks. So me, on my left stick, I just play with a small one. This is going to be kind of my movement stick. It allows me to change directions very quickly. But on my right stick, I play with a high one. And what's cool is they're actually going to send you multiple different options, so you can just pop these on and off and change if you don't like certain heights. But this helps a ton when it comes to aiming and just being more precise. The other thing I recommend changing is under the aim grip. I would definitely recommend the grip, which gives you a rubberized grip on the back. Just if your hands are getting sweaty and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier to hold on the controller. I also have smart bumpers, so my L1 R1 is a digital tap, which is just super responsive. Not completely necessary, but nice to have if you're going to do it. And then I have my vibration motors out. It's only $5, but it makes the controller a lot lighter. Now, depending on what time you're watching this video, the discount changes, but when you go to your cart, make sure you put in code TCaptainX, and that is going to give you a nice fat discount here. In this case, it saved us $60. The discount kind of changes every month though. And next, I want to touch on your sensitivity. Number one, you do not need to play on a crazy high sensitivity to have great movement. The best example of this is Biffle, who plays on the default 6.6 sensitivity, and he's arguably the best player in the game. Personally, I play on 7.7, but I see way too many people play on these just crazy high sensitivities, and they might have a little bit flashier, faster movement, but they then sacrifice their aim and overall fluidity for this. And I'm just here to tell you it's not necessary. As long as you play on the dynamic aim response curve type, if you're 6.6 or anything higher, you're gonna have plenty fast enough sensitivity to be able to turn and move directions and have great movement. Another setting that is extremely important when it comes to movement is our automatic sprint setting. For overall best movement, playing on automatic tactical sprint will be best. This is simply going to make it so that as soon as I press forward on the left stick, my guy is automatically getting into his fastest movement speed possible. Now, if you do not like that, then I would next recommend just play automatic sprint, but make sure your tactical sprint behavior is on single tap run. What this does is as soon as you press forward on the stick, you're gonna sprint, but then if I just press L3 or press in on the left analog stick once, then I automatically get to my tac sprint. I don't think it's quite as good as auto tac sprint, but you can make it nearly as good once you get used to that timing of hitting L3. I'm gonna quickly scroll through the rest of my movement settings here. Like I said, I have a full video dedicated to my entire settings where I explain all of these, but for just a quick overview, here's the rest of them. Alrighty, so now let's get kind of into the meat and potatoes of this video and talk about how to do the basics of these movement techniques. First, starting with the slide cancel. Most of you guys probably already know how to do this, simply done by sprinting, sliding, and jumping to cancel. So sprint, slide, jump, sprint, slide, jump. But why do we actually slide cancel? What's the benefit? In the old Warzone, slide canceling actually allowed us to reset our tactical sprint. Doesn't do that in Warzone 3 here. But let's say we have an enemy who's standing just around this corner. If I just walk around the corner and stop, turn, and shoot, it's pretty easy for my enemy to just shoot back and kill me. Versus, I can slide around that corner and I can come around that corner a little bit faster, more aggressively. I'm a moving target. It's gonna be a little bit harder for my enemy to hit shots on me because I'm more aggressively coming around that corner. And that's fine if you do that, but a lot of people make this mistake of they just come around and they slide and then they start to aim. Well, there's a much better way to do this here, because in Warzone 3 compared to Warzone 1, we can actually aim while we slide. So what you want to do is, instead of just slide jump around the corner, we actually want to slide aim jump. So that way we are already aiming our gun as we come around the threshold of that corner where we think an enemy might be. So again, sprint, slide, aim, jump. And the most important thing is that we have our centering correct. So if I think an enemy is right here in the middle, it's very important that I control my right stick and that I finish with my crosshair right here in the center. A lot of people will get the timing right where they slide, but then they overcorrect their aim and they're looking way over here and they have to come fix their aim. So what you can do is, when you're practicing this, is go around corners. You can just go into a random corner of the map or in a multiplayer, private match, whatever, and practice actually centering your aim and sliding around these corners and trying to aim kind of in the center of where enemies might be, and start to develop that control of your aim. Now, besides side canceling around corners, we can also do other things like simply jumping around corners, and the same principle applies. We need to make sure we're jumping and centering our aim as we come around, but also start to aim before you come around the corner. So a lot of people, they might jump, land, then aim. Again, we want to make sure we are jumping, aiming, and already aiming towards our enemy. Now, what's better, jump challing like this or slide cancel challing? Well, in most situations, probably side canceling is, because we can come at a lower and kind of faster target, because in Warzone 3, there's actually a penalty when you jump where your gun will aim slower versus if you're just sliding or just running around regularly. Another very useful technique is called shouldering here, and this is more to get information here. So let's say, again, we have an enemy who is down this hallway, and I'm trying to see if he's pushing me. Maybe I'm putting on plates, maybe I'm reloading. Instead of just standing here and reloading, what I can do is I can just pop in and out of cover here, and this is called shouldering. It's very simple. So again, let's say I have an enemy over here. Instead of I'm just trying to reload here, now I'm reloading by just going in and out of cover, and I'm getting information to see, is he pushing me or are there more enemies out there? You can also do this with what's called snaking, which is done by sprinting and proning rapidly here. So let's say there's an enemy right here, and I'm trying to get information to see if he's pushing me. Again, I can kind of just do this prone back and forwards thing. So I am pulling back and proning, and then I'm sprinting forward, back and prone, sprint forward, back and prone, sprint forward. And basically you do that rapidly here, and you can also get some shots. This is a really good way, if you can kind of master this, to barely expose yourself, but get shots on the enemy. Finally, let's talk about drop shotting. Drop shotting is a move that's been in Call of Duty since forever, pretty much here. And I think it's probably one of the most overused moves, though, in all honesty. So a drop shot is where, let's say somebody pops out in front of us here. We'll use this guy right here. We simply drop to a prone and shoot. The reason this is good is because it makes the enemy have to adjust their aim. They are going from aiming here, they drop shot, now they have to fix their aim and aim down below. But if somebody is way over here and you drop shot, the difference from aiming at chest to now your head, it's a very small correction. Versus if I'm right on top of someone, let's say I come around this corner and holy crap, there's a guy right in front of me here. If I drop shot now, this is the big change in aim. They really have to adjust their aim to hit their shots. So from here to aiming all the way down here. So rule of thumb when you're drop shotting, you should really only do it maybe within about 5 meters maximum, I think. Anything farther than that starts to become where it's too little of amount for them to adjust their aim. And now your head is protruding and they're just gonna hit headshots on you and probably end up killing you quicker. Now, a few tips on how to drop shot effectively here is, again, just like we talked about with snaking, is you want to actually pull back on the left stick as we hold our prone button. So back, basically simultaneously hitting back on the left analog stick and holding our prone button will allow you to do it a little bit faster, because if you're moving forward, your guy sometimes will crouch and sometimes he doesn't want to prone. Now, a little bit more advanced thing with drop shotting, which is what I like to do, is drop shot, but then immediately get back up and start jumping, strafing, things like that. And with that is, let's say I'm in a gunfight very close where maybe, you know, within 10 meters or so, where we're both in the open, we're both kind of shooting at each other. You don't want to just stand still and shoot. At a minimum, we want to be strafing and shooting, which means we are always pressing left or right on our analog stick so that we are a moving target. Also, if we're a controller player, we're actually gonna get more rotational aim assist by moving on our left analog stick while shooting. And then to add another layer to that is we can spam jump while strafing and shooting. Now we are a highly moving target, and it is going to be much harder for our enemy to hit good shots on us. And circling back to the whole button layout thing I talked about at the beginning, is it's impossible to aim and shoot if you have a default button layout and you're not playing either claw, or you didn't switch to bumper, jumper, tactical, or you have paddles like me, which allows me to jump and aim all at the same time. All right, now let's get into actually breaking down when do we use these movement techniques in game and how, what's the right situation to do so. So let's start off with the basics, slide canceling. So in this situation, I know from audio cues that there's a guy somewhere down the hall to my right here in Fortune's Keep here. And notice how I start to slide before I get through the door and I start to aim. I'm already have my aim turned down the hall. And it ends up basically where I'm aiming right at that player as I come through this doorway, turn and aim during the slide. So this is kind of your textbook way of how to slide cancel around a corner. Now, slide canceling doesn't always have to be around cover. It can just be in the wide open in some situations. So here I get pretty caught off guard by this guy in low control center. And what I end up doing, because he's right in front of me, is instead of just aiming and shooting, I actually do a slide cancel right at him. And then I turn during the slide. And basically I end up kind of breaking this guy's camera because I slide right at him and I adjust my aim during the slide. Another option here would have been just a drop shot, but this slide cancel technique ends up being way harder for him to hit shots on me. So we can also apply this to when we're outnumbered to help win a gunfight. So as I come up to top prison, there's actually 2 enemies up here. I kind of win the first gunfight with just a plain shoot back at him, but I realized the second guy, he's already shooting at me. And if I just turn and shoot, I'm 100% going to lose. So I have to throw his shots off. And we do that by simply turning to the side, slide canceling, and again, adjusting my aim during the slide. And that little slide cancel to the side is enough to throw his shots off and allow me to win the gunfight. Now, movement is not always about just breaking cameras and stuff. Sometimes it's about just kind of repositioning. So here I get caught off guard by this guy crouching in the corner. And notice when I do how I jump and kind of strafe back into the side, then we just simply hit a reposition, take a different angle to go around and get them from the res. Sometimes it's about just repositioning is all you really need when it comes to movement. Now, after that, I'm gonna get chased by a third into this room here, and I am super 1 HP. As I do that, I'm gonna close the door as we go in. I try to get a reload off, but notice he slams in after me. You can really use doors to your advantage here by going, as soon as they come in the door, you slam the door back open. That slamming the door open and closed against them is super like disorienting, and it allows me to kind of lose this guy, get plated up, get reloaded, and then we're able to go back out here and get these guys rotating away here. And again, nothing simple with these last 2 besides just kind of finessing them. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about breaking cameras here. So this all has to do with timing your slide around a corner. So there's a lot going on here. I'm trying to run away. Notice how I'm running and reloading, running and plating constantly moving here. When I finally get reloaded here, this guy is gonna try to re-chow me out through this doorway, but notice how I kind of peek my slide as I come by the doorway. And when I do, he's trying to chase me around, and because I'm rapidly sliding past him, I go across his camera, but I've got good centered aim and he has to turn around and he looks goofy, and that's kind of the art of camera breaking. All about timing your slides when someone's coming around a corner. Now, one thing you don't see me do it's too much in my own gameplay is drop shotting, and here's why. I'm actually gonna give you a situation of where drop shotting isn't that good here. So as I push into showers here, there's actually 2 people in front of me. Notice I start shooting the first one that is kind of already looking at me, and notice how I am strafing and jumping while shooting. When the second guy tries to drop shot right in front of me, I could just adjust my aim and I could probably win this gunfight. But when you drop shot, you are like cemented into the ground. You can't move. So instead, I literally slide cancel right at him and around him, and then he has to try to stand back up and turn around. And at that point, I've already shattered his camera and already won this gunfight. So I also want to touch on the fact that even if you have insane movement, if you don't pair that with actually good shots, it's completely useless. So in this situation, I'm in the cafeteria in prison here. This guy, he's wearing the sweat skin and he's gonna try to just run back and forth, back and forth. Now notice one, he does not do a single side cancel. He's literally just turning directions. So number one, just sprinting and turning directions is not good movement. Adding in those side cancels is very important to make it harder to track someone. But more importantly, make sure you are actually using your movement to set up shots and shoot back. And if you feel like you have horrible aim, I'd really recommend you go watch my Warzone aim guide video, where a ton of people have told me how much it has helped their aim improve drastically. I'll link that in the description below. All right, now let's wrap up with when we really start to get everything together, what this can look like when your movement is fluid and you can use it back to back to back here. So I'm coming into low prison here. I'm hearing a lot of footsteps around me here. And when I open this first door, I'm getting high alerted. We hit a nice slide cancel through, immediately Chall, the second player. Notice how every time I go through a corner, I'm side canceling in. When I'm shooting, notice how I'm always strafing and jumping in one direction. Basically, the key to what I'm trying to say here is every time you're going around a corner, you should be slide canceling through through with good centered aim. And anytime you're shooting, you should be strafing and or jumping as well during that. And all of that combined makes you a very difficult target to hit, which ultimately is what helps you win gunfights because of movement. So before we wrap up, I wanted to quickly cover what is a good way to practice your movement. If you own MW3 multiplayer, if you go into a private match here, and really quickly, just in case you don't know how to get there, because I will admit it's kind of confusing. When you're on this screen here, the multiplayer area, scroll all the way over, and behind my webcam here, you're going to see the private match. Do create a private match. Once you're in here, obviously you're going to make sure you have a class. I've got a double SMG class, which is really good for practicing here. In case you need the loadouts, we got them right here. This is a personal favorite of mine. The Strafe build Superi has amazing movement and also a WSP9. Next, go down to the game setup here. For the game mode, do free for all. For the map, I'm a big fan of training facility, but any small map is perfectly fine. And then for the game rules here, obviously you can set the time limit and score limit to whatever you want. I like to just crank it up so I don't have to worry about it here. For the player, I do like to keep this to 300 as that way, or for the health, that way it's similar to Warzone. I normally turn the health regen up to fast as well. Turn the radar on as well, but not a big deal. Ammo mags to max, health steal on if you want to really work on your aiming a little bit more, gives the enemies even a little bit more health at times. And I turn kill streaks off. Go over to the right here to the little plus icon below your name and make sure you turn the bots on. You can do anywhere from like maybe 7 up to like 15. I think I normally do like 12 or 13 or so. And then I like to normally turn this up to about regular difficulty, because when they're on recruit, they just don't really move. They just kind of stand still. So on regular, they actually move around a little bit more. Now, if you've seen my Warzone aim guide video already, this is what I do for a warm up pretty much every day for at least 5 minutes, maybe 10 to 15 if I've got plenty of time here. Where I actually turn my aim assist off when I do this to work on my aim, but I just go and you practice your aim and movement. Now, if your goal is to focus on the movement aspect, here's what I recommend you do. Make it a rule that before every time you shoot your gun, you have to slide cancel. So every time you're coming around corner, practice getting those slide cancels in so that they're nice and smooth. Work on your aim centering. And if you want to work on specific things like slide canceling, obviously do that. You can work on more specific things, maybe drop shot every time so that you get in the habit of doing it. You can shoulder, you can snake, you can jump chow, do whatever it is, but just try to make sure you're using movement every single time you're getting kills here. Do this for 5-10 minutes every day, and you will see massive improvements in your game, especially if you do this with aim assist off. Just make sure you turn your aim assist back on near the end. Maybe kill a few bots with your aim assist back on as well, just to kind of get a feel for it. And I guarantee if you do this, you'll see huge improvements. Now, if you don't own MW3 multiplayer, it's not a huge deal. Play a type of game mode in Warzone that you respawn. So Plunder or Lockdown are generally going to be those. Lockdown on Rebirth is great because you can get a lot of action. And the same thing applies. Just go in there and really try to focus. Okay, I'm going to slide cancel every time I get into a gunfight. And every single corner I go around to, I'm gonna side cancel around that corner with good centering as I come around the corner. And you just have to work on the things. There is no magic pill to automatically having great movement. If you go back and watch my content from 2-3 years ago, my movement was not nearly as good as it is now, but I play the game a lot and regularly, and I work and practice on these things and they get better. It's a crazy concept, I know. But guys, if you haven't already, go watch my Warzone aim guide, because I guarantee you that video will help you a ton, like this one hopefully did. If it did help you, please leave a like, maybe subscribe, comment, do all the things that help the video do well. We stream right here live on YouTube about 5 days a week, usually in the afternoons. So if you liked it, maybe come say hello. I appreciate you guys. We'll see you in the next one.